I hadn't been on a date in many years. As a black single father, I believed some doors once closed should stay that way. But when my coworker kept pushing me to meet someone, I finally agreed just to end the conversation. Now I sat across from her at that small restaurant, and something inside me shifted. The way she tilted her head, the way her smile started slow before spreading wide. Then she mentioned a little coffee shop in Boston, a place where she once studied with someone special. My breath caught. I knew that place. I had been that someone. Simone Williams. As I stood at the kitchen counter chopping vegetables, my son sat at the table doing his homework. Our small house in Atlanta was modest but clean, every corner reflecting the discipline I had built my life around. Years of raising my son alone had taught me that routine was everything. Dinner together, homework done, no chaos, no surprises. My son looked up from his textbook, "So, you're really going through with it?" I kept my eyes on the cutting board. I told Tony I'd show up. That's all. He repeated it with a hint of amusement in his voice. At that age, he had developed a way of seeing through me that I found both impressive and irritating. "It's just one dinner," I said. "I'll be polite, make conversation, and come home. Nothing more." He closed his book and leaned back in his chair. "Dad, when's the last time you went out with someone? And I don't mean grabbing coffee with the guys from work." I scraped the vegetables into the pan. The oil sizzled. "I go out plenty. You go to work, you come home, you watch me play basketball. That's not a life, Dad. That's a schedule." The words landed harder than he probably intended. I turned to face him, ready to defend myself. But something in his expression stopped me. It wasn't judgment, it was worry. "I'm fine," I said, softer now. He shook his head slowly. "You know what I remember about Mom?" My jaw tightened. We rarely talked about Tanya. She had left when he was little, chasing something she claimed she couldn't find in our marriage. I had spent years trying to fill both roles, and somewhere along the way I had convinced myself that my own happiness was a luxury I couldn't afford. "I remember nothing," he continued. "I was too young. But I remember you. I remember you staying up all night when I was sick. I remember you teaching me to ride a bike in the parking lot because we didn't have a yard. I remember everything you gave up for me." I turned back to the stove, stirring the vegetables more than necessary. "Dad, you don't have to sacrifice your whole life for me. I don't need that. I need you to be happy." The words hung in the air between us. I wanted to argue, to explain that being a father was enough, that I had made peace with my choices. But the truth was more complicated. I had built walls so high that I had forgotten what it felt like to let anyone in. "It's just one dinner," I said again, my voice barely above a whisper. He smiled, a small victory. "Then make it count." The restaurant was a quiet Italian place on the edge of downtown Atlanta, the kind with dim lighting and candles on every table. I got there early because that was who I was. I ordered water and waited, my leg bouncing under the table. I hadn't been nervous about anything in years. I managed construction crews, handled deadlines, solved problems that would make most people quit. But sitting in that restaurant waiting for a woman I had never met, I felt like a teenager again. Tony had shown me a photo, but it was blurry and small. "She's a psychologist," he had said. "Smart, kind, been through some stuff. Lost her husband some years back. I think you two might understand each other." I had agreed mostly to get Tony off my back. My coworker had been pushing me to date for months, claiming no man should spend his best years alone. I didn't see it that way. I saw my years as dedicated, purposeful, focused on the one person who truly mattered. But my son's words from the evening before kept echoing in my mind. "You don't have to sacrifice your whole life for me." The door opened and a woman walked in. She wore a simple navy dress, her hair pulled back in a neat bun. There was something calm about her, the way she carried herself with quiet confidence. She scanned the room, and when her eyes found mine, she smiled. I stood as she approached the table. Corey, she asked. That's me. You must be Simone. We shook hands and she sat across from me. Up close, I noticed the depth in her eyes, the kind that came from having seen too much and survived anyway. I have to admit, Simone said, I almost canceled. I let out a breath I didn't know I was holding. That makes two of us. She laughed, and something about the sound felt familiar, like a song I had heard long ago but couldn't quite place. We ordered food and talked about safe things at first. Work, the city, the weather. Simone was a trauma psychologist specializing in grief and loss. I told her about construction, about the satisfaction of watching buildings rise from nothing. There's something beautiful about creating things, she said, starting with empty space and ending with something real, something that lasts. I nodded. I used to want to be an architect, design the buildings, not just build them. What happened? The question was simple, but it opened a door I usually kept locked. Life happened. Family needed me. I had to make choices. Her expression softened. I understand that more than you know. As the evening went on, I found myself relaxing in a way I hadn't expected. Simone didn't push or pry. She listened in a way that made me feel heard, and when she shared pieces of her own story, there was no self-pity, just honesty. She told me about her husband, Robert, who had passed away some years ago from cancer. She told me about the years of learning to live alone again, about the work that saved her, and the friends who refused to let her disappear. My best friend practically dragged me here tonight, Simone admitted. She said I couldn't live like a widow forever. I smiled. My son said something similar, told me I needed to stop living like a schedule, smart kid, too smart for his own good. We shared a moment of understanding. Two people who had learned to carry their pain quietly and were only now considering what it might mean to set some of it down. Then Simone mentioned Boston. I went to college there, she said. Sometimes I still think about this little coffee shop near campus. I used to study there with someone. We'd sit for hours talking about everything and nothing. My hand froze around my glass. It had these old wooden tables, Simone continued, and the owner would let us stay past closing because we always bought too many pastries. My heart began to pound. I knew that shop. I knew those tables. I knew the owner, an elderly man named George, who called everyone kid, regardless of their age. The funny thing is, Simone said, looking down at her plate, I haven't thought about that place in years, but sitting here with you, it just came back to me. I stared at her, really looked at her, the way she tilted her head when she listened, the way her smile started small before spreading wide, the way she spoke about loss like it was a companion she had learned to walk beside. The years fell away in an instant. Simone, I said, my voice rough. Simone Williams. Her eyes widened. She studied my face, searching for something she had buried long ago. Corey Jackson. Neither of us moved. The restaurant continued around us, conversations and clinking glasses and soft music. But we existed in a separate space, a pocket of time where the past and present collided. I didn't recognize you, Simone whispered. You look so different, but also exactly the same. I couldn't speak. The woman sitting across from me was my first love, the one who had believed in me when I couldn't believe in myself, the one who had vanished without explanation, leaving me with questions I had never been able to answer. Years of wondering why I wasn't enough. Years of building walls to protect myself from ever feeling that kind of abandonment again. And now she was here in a restaurant in Atlanta, on a blind date that fate had apparently orchestrated without consulting either of us. Simone reached across the table, her fingers stopping just short of my hand. Can we pretend? She asked quietly. Just for tonight. Can we pretend this is the first time we're meeting? I understood what she was offering. A chance to know each other as the people we had become, not the ghosts of who we used to be. A chance to start fresh without the weight of everything that had gone wrong. I nodded slowly. Okay. But that night, Lying in bed and staring at the ceiling, I knew the truth. The past wasn't dead. It had just been waiting, and now it was very much alive. In the days that followed, I tried to convince myself that the blind date was a strange coincidence, nothing more. I went to work, came home, made dinner for Malik, and pretended that everything was normal. But at night, when the house was quiet, the memories returned uninvited. Simone at 19 laughing in that coffee shop. Simone holding my hand as we walked through campus. Simone telling me she believed I would do something extraordinary with my life. And then Simone gone without warning, without explanation, leaving me with a wound that had never fully healed. When she texted asking if I wanted to meet at the park near my house, I almost said no. Almost, but something stronger than fear made me type yes. We walked along the path that circled the small lake, autumn leaves crunching beneath our feet. The afternoon sun filtered through the trees, casting long shadows across the ground. I thought about calling sooner, Simone said, but I didn't know what to say. I kept my eyes on the path ahead. I know what you mean. We walked in silence for a while, and I noticed something strange. The silence wasn't uncomfortable. It felt natural, like a conversation that didn't need words. Tell me about your work, Simone said eventually. Not the facts. Tell me what it feels like. No one had ever asked me that before. People asked about projects, timelines, budgets. They didn't ask about feelings. It feels like solving puzzles, I said slowly. Every building starts as a problem. How do you take this empty space and turn it into something that serves a purpose? How do you make it strong enough to last? I like finding those answers. Simone nodded. That's what I love about psychology too. People come to me broken, and my job is to help them find the pieces they thought they'd lost. Do they ever find them all? Simone considered the question carefully. Not always. Sometimes the pieces are gone forever, but they learn to build something new with what remains. I understood that more than she knew. I had spent years building a life from broken pieces, creating stability for Malik out of the chaos Tanya had left behind. Can I ask you something? Simone said. Go ahead. Your son, you mentioned him at dinner. What's he like? I felt the familiar tension rise in my chest. I had kept Malik separate from every other part of my life, protecting him from disappointment, from attachment, from loss. He's a teenager, I said carefully. Smart, plays basketball, sees through everything I try to hide. Simone smiled. Sounds like he takes after his father. He's better than me. Braver. We reached a bench overlooking the lake and sat down. A family of ducks glided across the water, leaving ripples in their wake. I'd like to meet him someday, Simone said quietly, if that's okay. I didn't answer. I wanted to say yes, but the word wouldn't come. Meeting Malik meant something real, something that could lead to attachment and expectation and eventually, inevitably, to loss. Simone seemed to sense my hesitation. There's no rush. I just wanted you to know. Later, we were sitting at a coffee shop a few blocks from my house, sharing a quiet Saturday afternoon. We had fallen into a rhythm of seeing each other once or twice a week. Conversations that ranged from childhood memories to present-day struggles always circled around the past we had agreed not to discuss. The door opened and I looked up to see Malik walking in with two friends. My son spotted me immediately and our eyes met across the room. There was no escape. Malik said something to his friends, then walked over to the table. His expression was curious but guarded, the look of someone gathering information before making a judgment. Hey, Dad. I stood up, feeling suddenly exposed. Malik, I didn't know you'd be here. We were just grabbing drinks before practice. Malik's eyes shifted to Simone. Hi. Simone smiled warmly and extended her hand. I'm Simone. It's nice to meet you. Malik shook her hand, his gaze lingering on her face. You too. An awkward silence followed. I searched for something to say, but words failed me. I should get back to my friends, Malik said finally. Nice meeting you, Simone. He nodded at me. See you at home, Dad. I watched him walk away, my heart pounding. I sat back down, avoiding Simone's eyes. He has your eyes, Simone said gently. The way he looks at people, like he's seeing everything they're trying to hide. I stared at my coffee cup. He'll ask questions tonight. Is that a bad thing? I didn't know how to answer. That evening, Malik found me in the living room pretending to read a book I hadn't turned a page of in 20 minutes. So, he said, dropping onto the couch across from me, how long have you known her? I set the book aside. I had never lied to my son, and I wasn't going to start now. We knew each other in college. Many years ago, we just reconnected. Malik raised an eyebrow. Many years. And you just happened to meet again. Blind date. Neither of us knew. My son processed this information, turning it over in his mind. That's either the weirdest coincidence ever, or the universe is trying to tell you something. I almost smiled. Which do you think it is? Malik leaned back, studying me with that unnerving perception. I think she looks at you like you're someone important. And I think you look at her like you're afraid she'll disappear. The observation cut deeper than Malik could have known. I felt the old wound pulse beneath the surface, the fear I had carried for so long. It's complicated, I said. Malik stood up and headed toward the stairs. Before he left, he turned back. Dad, whatever happened between you two back then, maybe it doesn't have to matter anymore. Maybe you can just focus on now. He disappeared upstairs, leaving me alone with words that echoed long into the night. Sometime after our reunion, Simone called me one evening. I was sitting in the kitchen, unable to sleep, when my phone lit up with her name. Something in my chest tightened as I answered. Simone, is everything okay? Her voice was steady but carried an unfamiliar weight. Can you come outside? I'm parked in front of your house. I need to tell you something. I found her sitting on my front steps, her coat wrapped tightly around her against the cold November air. I sat down beside her, close enough to feel her presence, but not touching. I can't keep pretending, Simone said, her eyes fixed on the empty street. You deserve to know the truth. My throat went dry. The truth about what? Simone took a deep breath. About why I left. Years of silence stretched between us, heavy and suffocating. I had imagined this moment countless times, had rehearsed what I would say, what I would feel. But now that it was here, I could only wait. When we were together in Boston, Simone began, I knew something was wrong. You stopped sleeping. You'd get phone calls in the middle of the night and pretend everything was fine. I heard you crying once when you thought I was asleep. I remembered those days. My mother's illness. My sister, only 12 years old, trying to hold things together alone. The impossible choice that loomed over me like a shadow. I asked your roommate, Simone continued. He told me about your mother, about how sick she was, about how your sister needed you. My hands curled into fists. Why didn't you say anything? Because I knew what would happen. You would have stayed for me. You would have let your family fall apart because you loved me, and eventually you would have hated me for it. She turned to face me, and I saw tears glistening in her eyes. So I made a choice. I ended things. I cut off all contact. I disappeared so you wouldn't have to choose between loving me and being the man your family needed. The words hit me like a physical blow. All those years of believing I wasn't enough, that she had left because I was lacking something essential. All those years of building walls to protect myself from rejection. I thought I was doing the right thing, Simone whispered. I thought I was protecting you, but I took away your choice. I decided for both of us without ever asking what you wanted. My voice came out rough, barely recognizable. Do you know what I believed for years? Simone shook her head, tears falling now. I believed I wasn't good enough, that you looked at me and saw someone who would never amount to anything. That's the story I told myself every time someone got close. It's why my marriage failed. It's why I stopped letting anyone in. Simone reached for my hand, and this time I let her take it. I'm so sorry, she said. I thought I was saving you. I didn't know I was breaking you. We sat together in the darkness, two people confronting the wreckage of a decision made with good intentions and terrible consequences. What do we do now? I asked. Simone squeezed my hand. I don't know, but I'm tired of running from this. Whatever happens next, I want it to be honest. I nodded slowly. Honest. It was such a simple word for something so difficult. The days that followed were harder than I had expected, knowing the truth didn't erase the pain. If anything, it transformed it into something more complex. I wasn't angry at Simone, not exactly. But I grieved for the years we had lost, for the man I might have become if I hadn't spent so long believing I was unworthy of love. We continued to see each other, but something had shifted. The easy rhythm of our conversations gave way to longer silences, heavier questions. Do you think we can get past this? Simone asked one afternoon as we sat in her living room. I stared at the wall, searching for an answer I didn't have. I don't know. I want to, but I don't know if wanting is enough. The question that haunted me wasn't whether I still loved her. It was whether I could trust myself to love anyone without the fear of abandonment destroying everything. And beneath all of it was Malik, my son, who had already lost one mother figure and didn't deserve to lose another. If I let Simone into our lives and it fell apart, who would pay the price? The breaking point came on a Tuesday evening. I was sitting alone in the kitchen staring at nothing when Malik came downstairs. My son stood in the doorway for a moment, watching me with that perceptive gaze. You're thinking about Simone, Malik said. It wasn't a question. I didn't bother denying it. Malik sat down across from me. Dad, can I tell you something? Always. My son folded his hands on the table, looking older than his years. When I was little, I used to watch you, the way you took care of everything alone, the way you never complained, never asked for help. I thought that's what being a man meant, being strong, being alone. I felt something tighten in my chest. But I'm older now, Malik continued, and I see things differently. You're not strong because you're alone, Dad. You're just alone. And I don't want to grow up thinking that's the only way to live. The words shattered something inside me, a wall I hadn't even known I was still building. If you push Simone away because you're scared, Malik said quietly, you're not protecting me. You're teaching me that happiness isn't worth fighting for. Is that really what you want me to learn? I couldn't speak. My son had just articulated the fear I had never been able to name, the pattern I had been repeating without understanding. That night I called Simone. I think we need some time apart, I said, my voice hollow. I'm not ready for this. I don't know if I'll ever be. Simone was silent for a long moment. When she spoke, her voice was calm, but I could hear the pain beneath it. I understand. And I want you to know this time, the choice is yours. I won't disappear. I'll be here if you change your mind. She hung up and I sat in the darkness of my kitchen, feeling like I had just closed a door that might never open again. Time went by, Simone returned to her routine. Patients in the morning, paperwork in the afternoon, empty evenings in her apartment. She had built this life after Robert's death, piece by piece, and she knew how to survive within its walls. But something had changed in the quiet hours when the work was done, and there was nothing left to distract her. She found herself replaying every moment with me, not just the recent weeks, but the years before the coffee shop in Boston, the way I used to look at her like she was the only person in the room. The night she walked away, she had told herself for years that she made the right choice, that sacrificing our relationship had freed me to be the man my family needed. But sitting alone in her living room, she finally allowed herself to ask the question she had been avoiding. Had she been protecting me or had she been protecting herself? The truth settled over her like a weight. She had been afraid that if she stayed, I would resent her, afraid that my love would turn to bitterness, afraid that she wasn't enough to make me choose her over everything else. So she had made the choice for me, not to save me from pain, but to save herself from rejection. And in doing so, she had taken away my voice, my agency, my right to decide my own future. Now I had made my choice. I had asked for space, and she had promised to respect it. This time she would not run. She would not disappear. She would wait, and whatever happened next, she would accept it. I went through the motions of living. I woke up, went to work, came home, made dinner for Malik. The routine that had sustained me for years continued without interruption. From the outside, nothing had changed, but inside, everything was different. I thought about Simone constantly, not just the woman she was now, but the girl she had been. The way she used to believe in me when I couldn't believe in myself. The way she had looked at me on that restaurant night like she was seeing someone worth knowing. And I thought about what she had told me, the sacrifice she had made, the choice she had taken from me. I had been angry at first, a slow burning rage that surprised me with its intensity. Years of believing I was unworthy, and it had all been based on a lie. But as the weeks passed, the anger faded into something more complicated because I realized with growing clarity that I was doing exactly what she had done. I had pushed Simone away from Malik. I had told myself I was protecting my son from disappointment, from attachment, from loss. But Malik had never asked for that protection. Malik had stood in front of me and said he wanted his father to be happy. I wasn't protecting Malik, I was protecting myself. I was so terrified of being abandoned again that I had abandoned first. One night, unable to sleep, I found myself looking through old boxes in the closet. Photographs, letters, memories I had packed away and forgotten. Near the bottom, I found a picture of myself at 22, standing in front of the university building in Boston, eyes bright with possibility. I remembered that young man, the one who dreamed of designing buildings, of creating something lasting, the one who believed love was worth fighting for. Where had that person gone? I stared at the photograph for a long time. Then I thought about Malik, about the lesson I was teaching my son. If I spent my whole life running from love because I was afraid of losing it, what would Malik learn? That happiness was too dangerous to pursue. That the safest way to live was alone. I couldn't do that to my son, and I couldn't do it to myself anymore. I showed up at Simone's door on a Saturday afternoon without warning, without a plan. She opened the door and stood there, surprise flickering across her face before settling into something cautious and hopeful. "Can I come in?" I asked. She stepped aside. Her apartment was small and warm, filled with books and soft lighting. I sat on the couch, and Simone sat across from me, waiting. "I've been thinking," I said slowly, "about what you told me. About why you left." Simone nodded but didn't speak. "I was angry for a long time. I was so angry. You took away my choice. You decided my future without asking me." Her eyes glistened, but she held my gaze. But then I realized something. I leaned forward, my voice rough. "I've been doing the same thing my whole life. I've been making choices for other people without giving them a say. I told myself I was being strong, being protective, but really I was just scared." I took a breath, steadying myself. "When I pushed you away last month, I said it was for Malik. I said I wasn't ready, that I might never be. But that was a lie. Malik doesn't need me to be alone. He needs me to show him that happiness is worth fighting for, even when it's terrifying." Simone's hands were clasped tightly in her lap. "You made a mistake many years ago," I continued. "You made a choice that wasn't yours to make, but I understand why you did it. You were scared just like I've been scared, and I can't punish you for something I've been doing my whole life." I reached across the space between us and took her hand. "I don't know what the future looks like. I can't promise it will be easy. But I know I don't want to spend another stretch of years wondering what might have been." Simone's voice was barely above a whisper. "What are you saying?" "I'm saying I choose you, not because of who we were, because of who we are now. Because when I'm with you, I feel like the person I was supposed to become." A tear slipped down Simone's cheek. She squeezed my hand tightly. "I need you to know something," she said. "I'm not going to disappear again. Whatever happens, whatever challenges we face, I'm staying. You have my word. I felt something shift inside me. A door opening that had been locked for so long. Then let's start over, I said, not pretending the past didn't happen, but building something new from everything we've learned. Simone smiled through her tears, and for the first time in years, I allowed myself to believe that love didn't have to end in loss. Months later, the kitchen in my house was filled with the smell of roasted chicken and the sound of conversation. Malik sat at the table telling a story about his basketball coach that had Simone laughing so hard she nearly choked on her water. I stood at the counter watching them, still amazed that this was my life now. It hadn't been a straight path to get here. There had been difficult conversations, moments of doubt, old wounds that resurfaced when we least expected it. But we had faced each one together with honesty and patience and a commitment to doing things differently this time. Simone had become a regular presence in our home, not replacing anyone, not trying to be something she wasn't, just being herself, fitting into the spaces that had been empty for so long. "Dad, are you going to stand there all night or actually eat?" Malik called out. I carried the serving dish to the table and sat down. The three of us ate together, talking about ordinary things, schoolwork, weekend plans. Nothing dramatic, nothing extraordinary, but to me, it felt like a miracle. After dinner, Simone helped me wash the dishes while Malik headed upstairs to finish his homework. We stood side by side at the sink, working in comfortable silence. "Thank you," I said quietly. Simone looked at me. For what? For being here? For giving me another chance? She dried her hands and turned to face me fully. "Thank you for taking it." Malik appeared in the doorway, backpack slung over one shoulder. "I'm going to study at Tyler's house for a couple hours. That okay?" I nodded. "Be back by 9. Malik started to leave, then stopped. He looked at Simone with an expression that was part teenager, part something much older. "Simone." "Yes? Thanks for staying." The words were simple, but they carried the weight of everything Malik had witnessed over the past months. His father learning to open up, a woman who kept her promise, a family being built from broken pieces. Simone smiled softly. "Thanks for letting me." Malik nodded once, then disappeared out the door. Simone and I stood in the quiet kitchen, the evening light fading through the windows. "He's a good kid," Simone said. "He's better than I deserve." Simone shook her head. "No, he's exactly what you deserve. You both are." I looked at the woman standing in my kitchen, the woman who had once been my first love and was now becoming something new. Not a replacement for the past, but a bridge to the future. I didn't say I love you. Not yet. Some words needed more time. Instead, I said, "Thank you for letting me choose." And Simone, understanding everything that sentence contained, replied, "Thank you for choosing." Outside, the last light of day faded into evening. Inside, two people who had spent years apart stood together in a small kitchen building, something that didn't need to be perfect. It just needed to be real. Some people believe that first love is just a chapter we close and move on from. But maybe for some of us, it's a story that was never really finished. Have you ever reconnected with someone from your past? Or maybe there's someone you've thought about over the years, wondering what might have been. I'd love to hear your story. Share it in the comments below. After everything Simone and I went through, the most powerful lesson I learned is that real courage isn't about staying strong and alone. It's about having the guts to let someone in, even when your heart is scared to death of getting broken again. For years, I convinced myself that being a single dad meant I had to close every door to love. I told myself I was protecting Malik by never letting anyone close enough to hurt us. But the truth is, I was mostly protecting myself from feeling that same pain I felt when Simone disappeared all those years ago in Boston. Watching my son look at me with worry in his eyes, hearing him say I wasn't strong for being alone, I was just alone. That broke something open inside me. Love isn't safe and it never will be. But choosing it anyway, choosing honesty over fear, choosing to face the past instead of running from it, That's where real healing lives. When Simone and I finally laid everything on the table and decided to build something new together, I felt parts of myself come back to life that I thought were gone forever. And seeing Malik laugh with her at our dinner table showed me the most important thing. My son doesn't need a father who sacrifices everything. He needs a father who's brave enough to be happy. If this story moved you the way it still moves me, drop your own experiences in the comments below. Have you ever given love a second chance after years apart or let go of a fear that was holding you back from real happiness? I'd love to hear it. Your stories remind me we're all in this together. And if these heartfelt, real life moments touch your heart, make sure to subscribe and hit the notification bell so you never miss one. Your support keeps these stories coming, and I can't wait to share more with you.